we're 45-14 over here on this program with official picks after going 9-1 with some weekend selections the last 2 Fridays, and we'll have 10 more tomorrow on the program, and we've hit 7 of 10 specials. So let's get into it here. Official prop picks for tonight. I have 2. Again, I am playing with a lead a little bit here, so I don't want to be a little reckless. So I'm just going with money picks, I believe, and I'll sleep like a baby tonight, no matter what happens, because everything is just too good. It's too good. So also, I have 3 leans for those who want a little bit more. That would be the next tier of plays, most likely. So official pick number 1 is, in fact, Brandon Aiyuk over 64.5 yards, minus 120 on DraftKings. Let me get into the data because it is compelling as hell. The Seahawks have played single high on 66% or more of their snaps in 3 of 5 games, including each of their last 2. They played the 7th most overall on the season. And Aiyuk averages 3.46 yards per route run against single high. That is the 6th most in the league and represents a 64% boost in his yards per route run. And it also represents a 28.5% target per route run boost against single high. Seattle also runs cover 1 at a pretty good clip, almost a third of the time, 27.6. And Aiyuk kills man coverage with a 45% win rate. He will see a lot of Reek Woolen on the outside, who is a pretty good corner, who's tough. But Aiyuk is a handful for any corner, and I believe he's back on track after last week's big game. Now, there's a couple of other factors here that play into the Aiyuk analysis, like how Deebo Samuel, as we've mentioned, still looks a little slowed by his calf issue. That's why we measure separation scores at Fantasy Points Data, because his is not looking very good, which jibes with the eyeball test. So against single high, Deebo sees a 30% decrease in his fantasy point in his yards per route run. So it's not a big Deebo game. Like, he's Deebo, he's a baller, so he could always go off. But I don't think it's a Deebo game tonight. And also looking good for this is why one of the reasons I love the Aiyuk prop, in addition to everything else I just brought up. This looks like a very good time for Brock Purdy to push the ball down the field. Purdy leads the league in multiple time to throw metrics. And the Seahawks ranked 8th slowest in TTP, time to pressure, at 2.66. They're tied for first with the slowest average time to sack. Brock Purdy is a good processor. You protect him, he will slice and dice your ass back there. Purdy ranks 2nd in ADOT at 10.5 and 1st in YPA among current starting quarterbacks. So I think we're going to get a big play to Brandon Aiyuk. How great would it be if we get this on, like, I guess that's a little too much to ask, 65 yards on one grab, but there's nothing better than hitting a prop on like one play. That's great. And on the first drive as well. Then we're just celebrating the rest of the game. Now, prop number 2, I think I've said enough about Aiyuk. And by the way, if you hear Aiyuk is on fire, which is kind of a thing that I invented several years ago. But I am flattered that people are using that, like the 49er radio announcers, by the way, every time he scores. Google Aiyuk is on fire. You'll hear what I'm talking about. Next up, prop number 2 that I am going to officially put down, rubber stamp, sign off on. It is Georgie Kittle. It's a George game for sure, as we've mentioned for the majority of this broadcast. Over 49.5 minus 115. As for Kittle, we talked about single high, which they run 66% of the time lately, and Kittle is good against single high. He averages a very strong 2.67 yards per route run against the shell since the start of 2023. That leads all tight ends and constitutes a 47% boost to his yards per route run. The Seahawks have also allowed the third most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends and the fourth highest target share to inline players. And this is wild. Per our charting, Seattle has yet to force an incompletion against an inline tight end this year, and they're giving up the second most YPA to inline tight ends at 10.8 yards. And Kittle's inline route percentage this year is 54%, and he is second on the team in target share against single high coverage. They do not throw to the running backs. And it's also not a good schematic matchup for Juwan Jennings. So love me some George Kittle tonight over 49.5. Quickly, let's get into my three leans this evening. Lean number one is Tyler Lockett over 43.5 receiving yards. Honestly, it's a little bit of a guess, but not totally because he has hit 4+ catches in 4 of his 5 games and 46+ yards. So he's beaten this number in 4 of his 5. He is averaging more yards per route run than Jackson Smith and Jigba, honestly. The Seahawks are not good. They do give up minimal production on the outside, but Lockett has probably the best schematic matchup here. Not that it's fantastic, but the data shows that it is a positive one as opposed to JSN and Metcalf. And that makes a lot of sense because I went back and I looked, and he's actually averaging about 6 catches a game, just over 6 catches a game in his last 5 against the Niners. And last year, for example, he had 9 grabs for $119. I'm also going to go with Jordan Mason over 82.5 rushing yards. He's kind of the only game in town. And Seattle is giving up the 9th most adjusted yards before contact per attempt and the 8th most rushing yards per game to running backs. I mean, come on. Tyrone Tracy crushed them last week, kind of off the bench as well. And then finally, I'll go Ken Walker over 13.5 rushing attempts, as we've kind of outlined there. It's actually a decent matchup for Walker as well. The Niners are giving up the 11th most adjusted yards before contact per attempt, which should, mean success for Walker, which should also then mean more volume. So I do like this as a lean. 13.5 for the leans, which I believe went 12-4 last week. 9-1 on the official props, and I believe the leans went 12-4. I think on Monday, I believe we were 2-0. It is now time for the Thursday night special, and it is brought to you by G-Bank, the official bank of VSiN. The G-Bank Visa signature card is your best bet, delivering 1% cashback rewards on eligible gaming transactions and 2% cashback rewards on all other eligible transactions. For more information, head to VSiN.com/GBank. That's VSIN.com/GBank, subject to credit approval. Terms and conditions apply. The Thursday night special for week number 6 is, in fact, George Kittle over 49.5 receiving yards plus George Kittle over 4.5 receptions. And I believe if you can parlay these two up, I believe it's a really good odds, but you want to play them both individually, it doesn't matter. It's just like last week with Ray McLeod. We said the Thursday night special will not be a hit unless Ray goes over the yardage and the catch total, which of course he did. Same deal tonight with George Kittle.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at 0 cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.